so we are just jumping right in to wrap up this month. I did not have a video up last Friday. I was going to have my Chat Chill and Get Ready With Me up. I had literally filmed it, and then as I went to edit it, I just wasn't happy with it. I wasn't happy with, I don't know, I just felt like my energy was really low that day. And I don't know, I was just like very critical of it, I guess. And then there were like certain questions that I was like, I don't know if I actually want to include. And then I was like, I don't know how to take those out without it just looking like really odd. So I'm sorry about that. I did not have that up. We will try again at the end of this month. So anyways, we're just jumping right into my wrap up for January. The first month of the year, I read 9 books, which is insane. That's actually a lot for me lately. I feel like I used to average like 15, 16 books a month. Now I feel like I normally get around 5. So this was a really good reading month. A really great start to the year. I think I already found a book that's going to be in my top 10. So I'm really excited to talk about them. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. So my first read of the year was Fearless Like Us by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the 9th book in the Like Us series. It is a spin-off of the Addicted / Calloway Sister series, and a second generation following all of those couples' children and their bodyguards. And basically it's these like very wealthy families, so that's why they have bodyguards. And this one follows Sully, Banks, and Akara, and it is an MFM romance. And Sully is Reich and Daisy's oldest daughter, and it is her romance with her 2 bodyguards. This is their second book that they have, so I can't really get into anything that happens in this book because not only is it book 9 in the series, but it's their second book out of the 3 that they have in that series. So you really do have to at least read their first book in order to read this one. But overall, I will just say I did enjoy this one. However, it's not my favorite of the series or of theirs. It was a lot of like their family members and people finding out about the 3 of them being in a relationship rather than really a lot of like plot things happening, if that makes sense. So I personally like that because, and I will say it only works, I think, because it is this series and because I love these characters and because they feel like very real people. So I'm fine with just kind of seeing them all have conversations and seeing them interacting. However, I will say there's not a lot like plot necessarily that happens in this one. So it's not my favorite, but I did still really enjoy it. And I just love this series, and I obviously am going to keep going and continuing on. But yeah, this was my first book of the year. And then I read, which actually, okay, I think I had taken a clip right after I had finished. So then I finally did it, guys. I finally read the Torment duet by Dylan Page. So Torment Part 1 and Torment Part 2, which I did not realize that Torment Part 2 was that little until I got it in the mail. And I think I have a clip. I hope I didn't delete it at this point. I think I still have a clip of like my in-time reaction after I finished Part 2. So I'm just going to insert that here and let that speak for itself. This is although I don't think I said what this was about, so I'll say that. It's a dark, taboo duet. Check your triggers on it, and it's step siblings, and it's MC. So Mina, our heroine, her mom ends up getting married to a biker, and she kind of doesn't realize that until it's too late, and then they're kind of sucked into this world, and he has a son. Jay is our hero, and instantly he kind of takes Mina under his wing a little bit, and I will just leave it at that, and I will insert my clip, and hopefully it makes any coherent sense. I literally finished Part 2, and I just laid on my couch and just like stared for like a solid 20 minutes. I legitimately didn't know what to do with myself. Okay, I literally never do this, but just because I still have a few weeks probably until I would be filming my wrap up, I want to talk about the Torment duet right now while I'm fresh off of it. And then if I have any other additional thoughts, I can add them in when I'm doing my actual wrap up, but you're going to get this little insert of footage here. So I just finished, probably like an hour ago, I finished Torment Part 2. So as a whole, the duet, whatever, I'll talk about that in my wrap up, give the blurb. These are just my thoughts, my in-depth thoughts, okay? First of all, I feel manipulated as well. I feel manipulated as well by that entire book. In book 1, I was truly wondering, I was like, how is this going to turn out? Because quite frankly, I'm like, this is what I feel like a lot of people think off balance is. And I'm like, this is like legitimate, like grooming. This is grooming. And then reading just how like how it just slowly like seeped in. Like truly Shay is like he's a master manipulator, that I was like falling for it too. And then I jumped right into book 2, and it's so hard to say things without spoiling things. So then I'm like wondering, should I spoil? But like, I don't want to, because like I want other people who are watching this to be able to go and read it themselves. But I have so many thoughts that would spoil things, but whatever. In book 2 though, then truly I was like, genuinely, I don't see how this ends happily. Like I don't see how things are going to end up well. And I will just say I'm very glad that I trusted the process with Dylan Page. Honestly, I will say the book ended exactly how I was starting to think that it was going to. And kind of like, you know, one of the surprises with like things, the very end events of book 1, you know, that then bled into book 2 in terms of Mina's like accent and everything. I also kind of thought that. So again, I was like, everything that happened, I was like, it happened exactly how I thought it was going to. But then also I was still like just so surprised at the execution of it all and how well it was done. I loved it. I genuinely loved this duet. It made me uncomfortable, specifically in book 1 reading it. It made me uncomfortable. It made me feel just as trapped alongside Mina. I felt everything that she felt, and I genuinely found myself like, I totally understood her rationale. I totally understood it. I understood even as she like found out things over the course of both of these books, but she still was like, I love Shay. And then she's like, he's always protected me. And she's like, but he protects me because like I do what he says. But like, he's still at the end of the day, like he's the only one that's there for me. Like I totally bought into Mina's headspace. I totally believed it. And you know what? One of my favorite things is once I'm done with the book is to read the reviews on Goodreads, and the amount of reviews that I saw hating on Mina. I feel like that one meme, you know, of like the lady holding the guy and like pointing her finger. That's like me holding Mina and being like, everyone get behind me. Like, Mina, get behind me. Because genuinely, everyone failed her. Everyone failed her in her life. Her mother tried, oh my God, her mom's story too, like tore at my fucking heart. Cause it's like she tried. And like, we saw each and every time when she just kept getting like punched. And I mean, like sometimes literally we didn't like see it. But, you know, like just getting knocked down. And every time she tried to get up, and she did get up, but then you just saw each and every time she tried to get them out, and it just like wore her down. And like her mother's story is like tragic as hell too. And just seeing again, James is I would fight that man so quickly. He sucks. Because once again, it's like everyone just like, they all failed her. Everyone around her failed Mina. And like, I don't understand how anyone can read these 2 books, see what she has went through since she was 7 years old to the time that, you know, to the time when these books are done, when she's what, like 18, 19, whatever, or 17, 18, and not understand every single thought and choice and rationale that she made. I can't fathom how you don't see that, and how you're like, oh, she was dumb, oh, she was this, oh, she was naive, whatever. I can't even argue. I could argue if I could like say everything that I want to say, but also I want to keep this spoiler free so that way like you can go and read it yourself. I feel so passionately about Mina's character and about defending her, because genuinely like I loved this duet. I loved the ending. I loved the redemption. I loved the characters. I loved the writing. I loved also that it didn't, now don't get me wrong, I love our romanticized mafia and MC books, right? Like, I love those when it's like they're in the lifestyle, but they're kind of more like reaping the rewards, and like no one really like crosses too many lines, you know, whatever, as they do in romance books. Like, I'm cool with that. I like those. I enjoy those. However, this is not that. Like, it does genuinely show like the harsh reality of it all. And like, I loved that. Cause again, like, I just feel like Dylan Page didn't pull any punches with like showing, I feel like there were so many times that she probably could have like pulled back a little bit and been like, oh, maybe this is like a little too far. Maybe this is a little too much. And she never did that. And I loved it. I loved it. Y'all were really right on this one. Y'all were really right. It's gonna end up being in my top 10. Like, this duet as a whole is gonna be top 10. I did enjoy book 2 more than I enjoyed book 1. Don't get me wrong. I loved book 1. But book 2, I think out of the 2 is my favorite. And yeah, it's gonna be on my top 10. It just is. There's no way it's not. I finally feel like revived in reading. Like genuinely this feeling that I had, this feeling reading these two books, this is the first time that I have genuinely just felt so much like joy and excitement and like yearning for reading since I finished God of War last June. Like that has just been missing. That spark has just been missing with me with my reading. I feel like you guys can tell it in my videos and like the books that I've been reading. Like, and that's nothing. That's no shade against the books that I read the last half of last year. Like I still read really great books, but I just never, even though like they were good books, I just never felt that spark, that like intangible thing. But I feel it again. I felt it again with these books, and it feels so good to have felt that. Anyways, I've been rambling long enough. Back to future me for the rest of the wrap up. Okay, now that we're back, hopefully I had that clip. The next book that I read was Scythe by Neil Shusterman. So this one is a reread for me, a reread for, I don't even know how many times I've read this book. However, this time I listened to the audio because back when Audible did their sale, I got a membership, and this one was one of the books that was on sale, and this is one of my all-time favorite book series. It's a YA dystopian series where basically no one dies. Like we have, as a society, defeated death. However, in order to maintain population control, there are these things called Scythes, which is this organization, this group of people who get to glean people, and basically our hero and heroine in this one, they end up becoming apprentices to a Scythe. But obviously, as they start this apprenticeship, there's like corruption and, you know, all the good things that happen in like YA dystopian books. I absolutely loved it. I really liked the audio. I thought the audio was really good. I feel like I'm not the biggest judge of that because I don't read a ton on audio, but I did really enjoy it. And it's just one of my all-time favorite series. So I think if you're ever looking, I know that like we pretty much all read romance here for the most part, but if you are ever looking to dip your toe into YA dystopians, it's so good. Next up then, I read Endgame by Indy Valentine. So this was a new release last month in January, and it is also the first book in a series. So this one is a baseball sports romance and also best friend's brother, and kind of like workplace-esque because he's on the baseball team for the Atlanta. Oh, what's their baseball team called? I can't remember what the actual team is called, but obviously, so he's a player and she's a photographer on the team, or like she gets hired to be a photographer on the team. So it's Dakota and Calloway. So Dakota, she's just not having a great time at the start of this book, and this job is kind of like a new opportunity for her. And one day when her car ends up breaking down, she calls her best friend, and her best friend isn't able to get there to her, so instead she sends her brother, who is our hero, Calloway. And then Calloway ends up showing up and kind of saving the day, and pretty much right off the bat, like he decides that he wants Dakota. Like it's very much a like he falls first, and he's pretty relentless in making sure that he's going to be the one to snag Dakota and kind of get under her skin and kind of get past all of the walls that she has built up. And then especially with her being a photographer on the team, that gives them more opportunities to like interact with each other and be around each other. I loved it. I'm just a big fan of like a hero who just knows what he wants and is like gonna go after it, and that is exactly how Calloway is. Like as soon as he knows that he wants Dakota, like that's it. That's his end. Like that's end game for him, and he's not gonna like let anything stand in the way, including her. And I loved that. It was so good. Definitely pick it up if you are in the mood for a good sports romance. And y'all know I love the photographer dynamic. Hello. Next up, I read Find Me by Ashley N. Rose-Tech. So this one is the first book in the Witsec series. It's 4 books, and I forget our heroine's name. But anyways, she had a twin sister and parents, and they were all brutally murdered by Mr. X, who is a former teacher of hers. And obviously, as you go, you unravel that and hear more about that. But basically, after this murder had taken place and she got away, she is now, hi buddy, she is now in witness protection program. So she has been given a new identity and everything by her uncle, who is like her only surviving relative. And she is set up for a brand new life in Arizona. And she starts going to school there to finish out her senior year because she still wants to. She wants to do that and graduate. But her uncle ends up getting pulled away. He is an investigator, and he ends up getting pulled away in order to try to track down Mr. X, leaving her alone a lot of the time. And when she moves in, she ends up meeting the neighbors, who are 4 brothers. And it's a why choose with all of them. And obviously they have their own story and why they're kind of all on their own as well, and how they all like get to know each other. But yeah, I did enjoy this one. I will say I want to know more about Mr. X. Like that truly, like I liked the romance, don't get me wrong, but I'm more invested in like the plot, and like I really just want to know how this Mr. X comes into play, and like are there going to be any crazy like plot twists or anything? That's what I'm like, I just kind of want to find out who this killer is. I mean, obviously we like know who he is, but like he's not gonna just like leave her alone, right? Like he's gonna find her at some point over the course of these 4 books, and like that's what I really want to get to. So yeah, this was book 1, and yeah, we will see whenever I get around to getting to book 2. We know how I am with series, okay? We know how I am with that. Then I read The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden. So I have 2 thrillers in a row here, but I really enjoyed both of them. The Boyfriend is definitely my favorite of the 2 that I read. So this one, our heroine, she has just struggled with dating, struggled with her love life living in the city, and she's kind of sick of seeing everyone around her getting into these relationships and moving on with their lives, and she's like in her early 30s, mid 30s, and she's just kind of feeling like she's running out of time a little bit. And then when she meets this one guy, they fall in love, and she thinks like, this is like my perfect man, like he's great. Then at the same time, there are some murders going on that they think are connected with the same person, so like a serial killer who is dating these women and killing them. But she's like, that could never be my man. And then at the same time, we are getting flashbacks from another POV from another character, which I don't know, I guess I don't want to say anything and give it away, but basically like, you know, seen some sketch stuff in the past from this one character that then kind of like puts you on edge about them in present day. So anyways, I will leave it at that. I'm really like, I don't want to accidentally spoil something because I can tend to be, you know, verbose. So I'll leave it at that. I will just say, my thing with thrillers is that I tend to always have a good time reading them, but then by the end, then like in retrospect, I end up not enjoying it as much. This is not one of those. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of slow. I think like by like 25%, I was like, okay, I need this to pick up a little bit. And once it did, literally didn't want to put it down. And this is one that after the ending came, I was like, genuinely, that was good. That was really good. So really liked that. And then I also read The Crash by Freida McFadden. This is a new release. It literally came out. I read it on the day it released and finished it on the day it released. I couldn't put it down. And again, it's shorter. I think it's like 320 pages or something. But this one follows a pregnant woman who is on the road to go and visit her brother at this like ski resort. However, then a storm hits and she ends up crashing her car, and there's really no one around for rescue. And then finally this one man who looks like this big giant lumberjack comes out of nowhere and ends up rescuing her. And when he takes her to their cabin, this like remote cabin, again, there's like storms, so there's like not power, there's not really any way to get away. He takes her there to stay with him and his wife. And so originally she's like, thank God, sanctuary. But then she starts realizing that maybe she's not actually safe. And once again, I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I literally couldn't put it down. So I think I had read maybe like 20% before I went to bed this night on whatever, the 28th, the day it came out. And it was like a work night. It was a work night, yeah. And I literally took it to bed and I couldn't put it down. I had to finish it. Like I couldn't stop reading it. So again, a good one. And again, in retrospect, I still really liked it. I still think The Boyfriend is my favorite out of the 2, but it was just like a nice change of pace because after Torment, I was like, don't make me be slumpy again. But it kind of did a little bit because I love Torment that much. So yeah, did really enjoy The Boyfriend and The Crash. And then last but not least, again, we finally made good on my physical TBR. I read my physical TBR poll, which is The Rebel by Sophie Lark, which now I think is called Kingmakers Year 2 because it did get traditionally published by Bloom, and this is the old out-of-print indie edition. And this is the second book in the Kingmakers series, which is a spin-off of the Brutal Birthright series, and I think some other characters from other Sophie Lark Mafia books. But this one in particular, our hero is the son of Ada and Callum from Brutal Prince, which is the first book in the Brutal Birthright series. And this is basically like a Hogwarts Academy for mafia families. Like, they send their kids there to either be the heirs, the enforcers, the accountants, or the spies, and you like join one of the ranks. And our heroine, she is from a mafia family, I think in Spain maybe, and she's in an arranged marriage with this guy that she absolutely hates, and she's been arranged with him for years. Like, she knows that this is her fate, and she basically just keeps trying to put it off and prolong getting married to him by going off to Kingmakers, and kind of negotiates that in with her deal with her father. And by the second year that she's back at school, like, it's getting to a point where she's like, I'm genuinely like fearful of, well, she's not like fearful of her life, but she just knows that she's like, I literally cannot marry this man. And then she ends up meeting Miles, and she like genuinely does start to fall in love with him. And Miles, even though he is like in the mafia and his family is, like, he doesn't really have a lot to do with it, and he doesn't really like want like a lot of that big responsibility. Like, he more kind of likes the entertainment stuff, kind of wanting to be like a behind the scenes like manager guy, and he kind of likes brokering deals, and that's kind of how he gets around Kingmakers, is like getting people what they want. And when he decides that she is what he wants, he's like, well, I'm about to make the deal of my life, like, I need to figure out how to get her out of this, and tries to get her out of the arranged marriage. I really enjoyed this one once again. However, I will say, I think I definitely liked this one more than book 2. However, I think I finally get it. The Dean hype that everyone's been talking about for book 3, The Bully. Oh, because at first I was like, why are we getting chapters of Zoe's sister in here? Oh, you're telling me she's gonna be the heroine with Dean? And then we saw even more of him. Oh, I'm so excited for book 3. I'm so excited. I like almost jumped right in. I think, is it on Kindle or not? And I was like, this is a heavy book. I don't feel like reading another one physically right away, but I'm really excited for book 3. I think that one is really gonna be where it's at for me. But I did really like The Rebel a lot. It was very like bingeable. So anyways, that is the 9 books that I read last month. I was hoping that I would finish Iron Flame to include, but no, I'm still not even done with it, even on the day that I'm filming this, but we're closing in on that. So anyways, that is it for today's video. I think on Friday, I'm going to have a book haul up. That way I can film that while I'm still here, because I am going to be dog sitting, so I want to get that done. But then I don't know what's coming up after that. I think I had videos like mapped out, but I don't know. So you can expect a book haul on Friday, but otherwise, that is it for today's video, and I will see you when I see you.